So centralizing your mind, your breath, and therefore your energy. Conscious of the weight exiting through the feet. Become aware of the spine. Open and elongate the spine. Each out breath is a releasing breath. Let the hips drop to elongate the spine. As you let the hips drop, which of course means bending the knees a little bit, as you let the hips drop, think of keeping the head where it is. Last time we talked about the Velcro strip, or if you just imagine the head staying there as you drop the hips, that again will open up the spine to a certain degree. Consciously releasing the abdomen. So breathing in, abdomen and torso expands. Breathing out, sinks back in. Consciously releasing tensions on the out breath. Once you feel you've centered your mind and your energy below the navel, then if you want to, you can let the arms hang. You can take different positions with the arms. But it's always good to start by centralizing mind, breath, and energy. Noticing any tension in the lower back. Hang the tailbone and or push the lower back. Fill out that space. And the same with the back of the neck. Push it back, fill out that space so it's virtually straight. And then remind yourself to hang out again. Weight through the feet. Becoming aware of your hands. Send your mind forward. So go into commencement. Again, each time using less and less physical work, releasing tension on each repetition. And one of the things I wanted to concentrate on tonight was the sense of continuity, continuousness. So no breaks, no fits and starts, seamless, smooth, just like water flowing. Water in a stream or a river, or water flowing downhill. Even when it meets an obstacle, it never stops. And so as you come all the way down with the arms, you're already flowing forward. Once you reach the uppermost point, you're already sinking down with the elbows. So dissolving any lines, any segments, continuous flow. And just to kind of connect and relate what we've talked a little bit about the last couple classes, when the arms are in front, notice any tightening of the back muscles to counter the weight of the hands way out there, or notice any tendency of pulling back to counter that weight. And what you want to do to counter that weight being way out in front is hang the hips, Flatten the lower back, point the tailbone down. We want to make sure that we don't go too much the other way. Again, where we're heaving back to counter that forward weight. So we don't want to tilt the pelvis forward. Tilt straight down. So if you feel any tension in your back as the arms go forward in front of you, see if you can cancel that tension and drain the weight of the hands straight down your structure through your hips, through your legs. And that's mainly a matter of releasing, straightening the lower back, hanging the hip cage, or pointing the tailbone straight down. Releasing those shoulder joints. The belly is released and free to move with the breath. Complete continuousness. We'll change this slightly. Once the arms are up in front, rotate so the palms face the chest, expanding out. Coming back together, and then down. Flowing forward, rotating so the palms face you, expanding out. Don't squeeze the shoulder blades together. The back stays round. So the arms are going out to the sides, no back motion, straight out to the lateral direction. So watch out for any of that squeezing action. Back stays open and round. You can have a gentle rising here, sinking here, rising, sinking. And if you want to connect that to the timing of the breath, breathing in on the rise, breathing out on the sink. Breathing in on the rise, breathing out on the sink, and then you can go at your own pace. Letting those shoulder joints release and open. Elbows are pointed down. Again, we'll focus on that theme, continuousness, complete continuity. So there's no stopping at the bottom, there's no stopping at the top, no stopping at the sides. So all those lines blur together, just like water would do. When you're all the way down, you're already flowing forward. When you're up, you're already flowing out. When you're all the way out, you're already coming in. And the way to really make that physically continuous is that your intention is always leading. So your intention is slightly ahead. Your intention is leading the physical movement. So the body doesn't get a chance to stop. The body doesn't have a chance to stop because the mind is always pulling it or leading it. So as you approach so-called endpoint, the intention is already leading in the other direction. And resting those shoulders straight down. Releasing those shoulders more and more. So for example, just before my arms reach the bottommost point, my intention is already flowing forward. And before my arms reach the apex, I'm already sending my intention out to the sides. Before my body physically gets out to the sides, I'm already bringing my intention in. And before I reach the front here, my intention is already leading down. So the body then has no choice but to be continually flowing. It's being led into that continuous movement. It's much more graceful, fluid, smooth. As you hang out, dangle the spine. Can you release those shoulder joints even more? Can you let the weight exit through the legs and feet? Okay, and then a little wider stance, toes out slightly, knees out slightly as we go into serving tea, but first hang out, breathe, release, open. Send your mind first, the body follows. It's okay. In fact, it's suggested that your arm movement, your arm motion starts very, very small, very minimal, rather than going into what we think is supposed to be that big shape and that end position. You're probably getting there very muscularly and very intellectually. So be willing to let your arms start with very, 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 very minimal movement. And gradually it can flow into a larger movement as it's picked up by the flow of intention. Hang out, angle the spine, release into the ground, descend the hips and the weight in the other direction. Release into the ground, turn the hips. Let the arms be pushed by the hip turn. Equal awareness in both arms and hands. Equal. Pay particular note if you might be slightly ignoring the one that's behind and lower. That's typically the case. You'll tend to be more focused on the one that you can see, one in front of you, you can see. So pay a little extra note. See, can I equalize my attention? Can I equalize my awareness? A little extra emphasis for that down and backward hand to even it out. And then the thought of continuity. When you start to approach reaching an endpoint, both arms, when both hands start to approach an endpoint, you're already intentionally moving in the other direction as you hang out and release the abdomen. So it's very much not getting to an endpoint and then sending the mind the other way. It's not getting to an end position and then going the other way. That would be okay if you're learning a move, working on structure, position, placement. And of course, you need to do things in a stochastic manner. But when you're actually doing the Tai Chi, or actually doing the movement itself, there's no endpoints, there's no segments, no starts and stops. It is just like water. So when you start to reach what may be an endpoint, your intention is already leading in the other direction. Let the shoulders melt away from the ears. Let the weight of your arms drop through your elbow points, and from the elbow points dropping down through your hips. Hang and release the abdomen. A fair bit before you reach the end point, your intention is flowing the other way. So it's like your body is dragged and compelled into the other direction. Open up the back of the neck, lower back. Sit the shoulders, release the shoulder joints. Okay. So bow stance, toyus. We'll take a moment to hang out here, just to work the posture. Shoulders down, elbows pointed to the ground. The weight is 60 or 70% forward, hang from the string, release the abdomen, release down the front leg, send the hip back, release down the back leg, turn the hip forward. Again, equal awareness in both arms. So our theme tonight is kind of two things: equal awareness through both sides, both arms, both hands, and having a sense of continuity, developing continuousness. Hang out. We'll sneak in another element here, something we talked about last class or two as well. When you come forward, rather than having a sense that your body is moving forward, your upper body is moving forward, that will tend to create some level of leaning forward. So rather than thinking of going forward, in particular with your upper body, instead of that, you're shifting the weight to sink the weight down the front leg. You're not going back, you're shifting the weight back to sink the leg down, sink the weight down the back leg. Don't think of shifting the weight to go forward, you're shifting the weight to simply sink the weight down the front hip and down the front leg. If you think of shifting the weight forward, there's going to be some leaning forward, and just for the simple reason that your intention is leading your body. So shifting the weight forward, releasing down the back leg, simply descend and sink the weight down the front hip and down that leg. And that idea and quality and sensation of continuousness. So before the hands reach the furthest most point, you're already coming back with your weight shift, and that's happening because your intention has already moved back. And when you're already, before you're already sitting to that back hip, you're already sending your intention forward. Equally aware through both arms and hands, hanging straight down, shoulders sitting on top of the rib cage. And just before you're all the way forward physically, you're already intending back. Before you're fully sitting into that back hip, your intention is flowing forward. And mainly focusing on and allowing a sense of continuity, complete continuousness. Releasing the abdomen, switching your feet whenever you like. Always take a moment before you start the checklist. Hang out, breathe. Shifting the weight just to sink the weight down the front hip. No further than the front hip. You shift the weight forward just to sink the weight down the front hip, front leg. Hang out, release the abdomen. Equal awareness. And if you can, notice what the tendency is as far as your awareness. Which arm, which hand do you tend to notice more than the other? See if you can catch yourself neglecting one side or one arm. And that's a big win. And then just intend to equalize that awareness. Feel the space equally in both directions with your awareness. See if you can dissolve any endpoints, any segments with continuous intention, continuous leading. Another aspect of that continuousness is you may have gotten fully forward, which really shouldn't be more than 70%. Let's say I'm 70% forward here. I can still have some movement forward with my arms and hands. Even though physically I'm not going further anymore, I'm still sinking the weight down my front hip. So here I've reached my maximum forward, but as I sink consciously more weight down my front hip and leg, that's pushing my arms forward still. Then I'm intending back. So that's another aspect, another dimension, creating the continuousness. So it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that when you come to your full forward position that your arms have to stop and go back the other way. Not quite yet. You can come to your full forward position and continue intentionally sinking your weight down that front hip and leg, and that continues to send the arms forward. And that opens up the shoulder joints very nicely. Opens up the shoulder joints, eventually the other joints in the arms too. Elbows, wrists, even fingers eventually. So you still have a little extra coasting that the arms can do if you are sending the weight down that hip and leg. It can continue to open the arms, stretch the shoulders, stretch the arms, and eventually arms are dragged back by that physical weight shift. So there's a bit of a drift yet for another 1 or 2 seconds, even once I'm fully forward with the weight. Remember, questions are always good, so feel free to jump on that unmute button anytime during these classes. Hang out, release the abdomen. Okay. And into some non-use. Again, we'll take a moment, hang out, open up the shoulder joints, check the knees. We're going to move the arms, rotating up and forward, but try to access that from the feet or the ground, not from your shoulders. Again, once you start, it's complete continuousness. Again, no endpoints, so there's no stopping at the top, no stopping at the bottom. So when you're physically down or just before you're all the way down, your intention is already up. As you reach the apex here at the top, you're already dropping the hips, dragging the arms down. Equal awareness in both arms. Try to notice where it's not so equal. If you just assume they're equal, you maybe will miss it. So consciously look for unequalness, see if you can find it, and where those places are. For example, I find for myself, I'm more equal on the way down for some reason. My arms, hands are more equally full and full of mind on the way down compared to on the way up. So then I intentionally fill that space to make it more equal. By noticing the empty spots or the unequalness, then I can then fix it with the intention. But there is, for some reason or another, a more natural fullness, equalness, evenness in both arms, both hands on the way down. Comparatively speaking, not as much on the way up. So it may be the same with you, or maybe the other way. Or it may be happening in a different way. See if you can find out how that is happening, where that's happening. You may also notice that maybe it's not just the arms that might be a little bit unequal. Maybe it's, again, other two halves of your body. You might notice that in a particular move, may not be this one, that one half of the body is more full and more mindful than the other half. Okay, coming up. Inching the feet in. Okay, excellent. How are we doing? Any questions? So let's take this into some room lengths. Let's start with brush knee. Now, let's tackle a spot in brush knee right away. So here, whether you have a balanced step or not, as you know, the arms don't stay out here stationary. They actually continue moving. So the energetic or mind aspect that creates that continuousness is your outward flow of intention. So if you weren't doing anything physically at all, no sitting, no weight shift, nothing, your arms should still be expanding away from each other simply because of your intentional vectors. You're relaxing outwardly, or you're emanating outwardly, or your outward flow of mind. So if you weren't doing anything physically, the arms should still just be flowing away from each other. And again, it's good to focus on the elbows drifting away from each other. That tends to keep the shape better. If we just think of the hands or the arms, we tend to rotate our elbows up and create tension here. So just a quick reminder that it's the elbows that are drifting apart. That keeps the shoulders down, tends to keep the shoulders down, and keeps the shape. If we just say arms drift away from each other, it'll tend to be a rolling and hiking up. So you have the intentional dimension that ensures no stopping points, no end points, no segments. And if you just had that, you wouldn't be able to stop. So just that intentional or energetic dimension is all you would need for continuousness. But we also have a physical mechanism. As we sit into that hip, again, quick note, it's not going out to the side. It's just a little bit of sitting back. As if you're doing a one-legged Danyu, you're sitting into a chair. So not out, it's a little bit back. That sitting is the physical hydraulics that sends the arms or the elbows apart. So if you'll just do this here physically, using a balanced step for now, so hang out, shoulders down, arms apart, elbows pointing towards the ground. A little sit drives the elbows further apart, and then coming up a little bit, a little sit drives the elbows and arms apart, coming up a little bit, and just so you can revisit that a few times. So it's physical sitting, connect that to the elbows, to the arms being driven apart. The sitting drives the elbows apart. Try a few on the other side as well. Hang out, release the shoulders down, make sure your knees are bent. Arms are already away from each other, expanding out. Then as you sit, it drives the elbows even further away. Sit. So that's the physical linkage. It's the mechanism. So you want to do this a few times so your body gets the idea. It has the body memory of sitting, creates an expansion through the body. Sitting is translated into an expansion. Sitting creates the expansion. Now, when you're moving, doing room lengths or in the set, whether you're touching down or whether you're stepping right through, any sitting is an expansion. Sitting is the opening. So that's the physical connection. So let's do a few brush knees. Again, take a moment before you start the checklist. Equal awareness through both arms. Try to keep that equal awareness throughout. And notice when you lose that equal awareness. And no endpoints, no stops and starts. And the sitting drives the elbows further and further apart. Like water flowing downhill. Once you start the motion, be really hard to stop it. So that flow fills in all the spaces, all the segments, all the endpoints. It's strong, flowing forward, blurs or dissolves any endpoints. So remembering that sitting drives the elbows further apart. When you get close to end position, you're already moving into the next part. Get to any end position, you flow through it. Okay, how are we doing with that? Any questions or comments?
Yeah, Brad, I think, I mean, this could just be about emphasis, but in that continuous motion, what I'm finding hard is actually to take the step. You know, like sinking down and the expanding is good, but it's feeling like it has to be physical to get the back leg forward. So somehow this down and out doesn't include through or something.
Okay, so at which point? So if I'm going here,
Yeah, so like I guess it, you know, as you're coming in to your front foot and your arms are expanding and you can unweight your
here,
left foot, then getting the back weight forward, to me that's physical. There,
right?
like I don't know what the internal mechanism is.
Let's see, let's see. Okay. Excellent. So,
I would say other than falling.
okay. So this is really nice. So let's break this down a little bit so we can access that part. Okay, here. As I sit into this front hip, into the quad, let me take the arms out of it, and you'll see that this leg, this back foot is forced into movement, so to speak, or peeled off. Watch. As I sink into this leg, again, weight going down the front hip, watch my back heel. I've opened it, I shift the weight, 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 shift the weight. So that foot is literally peeled off as you sink into that hip. Sink into that hip. And again, don't think of forward because you'll tend to lean. Sink into the front hip, front leg, front leg, front leg, front leg, front leg. That's peeling off the back heel, and the hip turning to that corner swings the leg through. So your leg can actually just be this pendulum swinging through. So that's something really interesting to work on. So let's do that. So probably be easier to access it without doing the arms at first. So of course you open your foot to the corner. Think of sinking down that front hip, and notice how that lightens the back heel. That lightens the back heel. And as you continue to sink and turn your hip, they'll peel the whole foot off and it'll swing through. Any questions or comments about that process?
Yeah, I mean, I would just observe that it's easier on one leg than the other. You know, the heel, the side with the Achilles that's still, it's tentative because it doesn't know if it can bear the weight.
Okay, so when you step down again on that foot,
Like in, if the left foot's forward and then you rotate it out, right, like you're dropping into that leg, but that's because of what's going on there. It's not sure it wants to accept the weight. Like on the other side, it feels quite nice, but
I
it,
see.
you know, it's possible, but I think that injury keeps me not
Right,
wanting to go there.
right. Okay, okay, that's interesting. So I'm going to mention this and talk about it very specifically with that because this will apply to any other injury or restriction. So let's try this. As you're shifting the weight into that left leg, allow the weight to fall through that leg and foot as usual, and allow a lengthening or rising up the Achilles tendon. So you're sinking down through the middle of the knee, through the middle of the foot, and having an equal rising through the back of the leg, through the back of the Achilles tendon. As you sink the weight down through the middle of the knee, in the middle of the foot, there's a commensurate rising and lengthening up the Achilles tendon. back of that leg. And deal with the weight by allowing the weight to sink down through the middle of the foot and allowing a rising or lengthening up the back of the leg, including the heel, right from the back of the heel of the back of the leg. There's a commensurate rising up the back of the heel through the Achilles tendon, back of the calf as the weight sinks. And try not to do anything in particular muscularly. That's an intentional flow and action. Both the dropping of the weight down the center of the knee and the center of the foot, and the rising up the back of the heel and tendon. That's an intentional flow, not a physical attempting. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Now, did you know that you can switch directions of brush knees when you reach end of your room, reach a wall? You can go in the other direction without any stopping, complete continuity. So I'm sure that there's some of you that haven't seen this before. And once you have a sense of it, it is a very nice flowing feeling. So let's say I'm here and it's as far as I can go. So I can actually continue in the other direction. A continual flow. So if I'm here and there's the wall, so I go into that last brush knee as far as I can go, I can actually flow into another brush knee. Okay, you're familiar with that? So it's a nice way to continue going so you don't have to stop at the wall and reset up. So just physically and mechanically, it's a nice way just to, so you don't have to always stop. But it's very much in line with the theme tonight where we have the continuity. So if I can explain that, maybe I'll face this way so we're all facing the same direction. So it's the beginning is very much akin to fan through back, right? It's very similar to fan through back in look and in feel. So if I'm in right brush knee, just like fan through back, as I shift the weight back and turn on the right heel, the bottom arm is going to go up, top arm goes down. So that's very similar to fan through back. So I shift the weight back, turn on the right heel, right hand goes up, left hand goes down, all the weight in the left leg. Now, as I shift the weight back to the right leg, my right hand continues in that arc forward, down and back, and I lift my left arm. And then you're ready for the next step, brush knee. So maybe let's do that same side, same way a couple more times. So if I'm again in right brush knee, hang out. I shift the weight back, turn on the right heel. As I do that, bottom hand, right hand comes up, top hand comes down. The right hand will continue going in that arc in the same direction. Then I shift the weight back to the right leg, touch down for the balance step, correct my right foot if I need to. I'm set up for the next brush knee. Perhaps we'll do that once more on that same side. Okay. So bottom arm goes up, right arm goes up, left arm down, Right hand continues in that same arc. Left hand rises, right arm continues down, through, and back. Any questions there? Let's do a few on the other side. So left brush knee, hang out. Remember, the footwork is simply shifting back, turning on the left heel. As we do that, bottom hand goes up, left hand goes up, right hand down, left hand continues in that arc, shift the weight back to the left leg, touch down, right arm comes up with that right leg. Then we step into that next brush knee. So from left brush knee, here we go. Any questions with that? It's groovy. It's very flowing. Maybe not at first. Yeah. Yeah, Luann's having a lot of fun with this one. So a couple more details in case you have a little bit more room in your brain. And even if you don't, it's something you can keep in mind as you work with it. So you just get a little bit more detail. So again, very much like fan through back to start with. So here. And then once I shift the weight back, here, my hand rotates, the arm rotates. Again, that's just a detail. Once you've done this number of times, you'll be able to bring that into it. But so here, as I shift the weight back, that rotates this arm into the palm up position. Once you have this, you don't have to do this now, but maybe I can just illustrate it. You can actually, see, I almost went into a fan through back position here, right? It has the same movement and virtually the same starting point. So I could do one here and then go right back into the other direction. One way, then the other way, continuously. So I can actually do brush knees on one spot. Brush knees on one spot. Probably thought that was not possible. Brush knees on one spot. As I shift the weight back, that rotates that cycling arm. Any comments or questions there? I know I can hear all the hooting and hollering in the background.
That's craziness.
Yeah, it is.
It's beautiful to watch, but I was like, man, I think I'm gonna need to be.
Yeah, it tickles the brain. Tickles the brain for sure.
Yeah, tickled. Thank you.
Yeah. So, okay, then maybe follow me a couple more times, if you'd like. So if I'm in right brush knee, so I shift back and turn on that right heel. Bottom hand goes up, right hand goes up, left hand down. Right hand continues in that same arc. As I shift the weight back to the right leg, the right palm rotates up. And then step, and you have a brush knee. So maybe a couple more times on that side. Okay. Remember to breathe. Okay, so shifting back, right hand goes up, left hand down, turning on the right heel. As I shift the weight back to the right leg, the right hand continues in that same arc and turns palm up. Breathe. So perhaps one more on that same side. And we can do a few on the left side, left brush knee. Okay, so left leg's forward. We're going to shift back and turn on that left heel. As we do so, left hand goes up, right hand goes down. Left hand continues in that same mark. As I shift the weight back to the left leg, the left hand rotates palm up as it continues. Make sure you're not holding your breath. Okay, again. If you need to, feel free to follow me again. What could be more fun? So maybe we'll review that in another class and again to a bit more detail. But I don't want to tell you which class. So I want to make sure you show up for that class. Okay, any comments or questions? Let's do a wind down. Hang out, weight through the feet. And again, for every quanta of weight you can drop down out of the body, any quanta of tension you can release down, so directly, equally, at least equal releasing, opening, emptying effect on the upper body. So let's just play with that for a moment. As you release down, whatever is weight, tensions, anything that you can feel or imagine, you release it down. Directly connect that to an opening, emptying, spacifying effect on the upper body. And when you do drop down through your legs and feet, make sure it's not pulling the knees in. I'm going to counter it by having the knees repelled away from each other just a bit. So you might need to counter that. So if you're dropping down, there's going to be a tendency for the knees to be sucked in. So open up that structure. And that makes things more empty to allow the weight to fall more freely, and connect that. You have to intentionally connect it. Connect that to opening the body more and more. So dropping, sinking, releasing down is directly related to opening and emptying. And now let's centralize. Either envision the bowl of the hips and rest the mind and breath in the bowl of the hips, or simply just below the navel in the core of the body. Again, each out breath is a releasing breath. Mindful of the back of the neck, mindful of the lower back, its shape and its openness. Let the shoulders fall away from the ears. Releasing more weight or whatever you can release, tensions, stuff on the out breath, causing further opening, releasing, emptying of the body. Spine becomes long and open. Take a deep, long breath in through the nose. Long breath out through the mouth, and release the hands and just let them swing just so naturally with gravity. Just momentum and gravity taking the arms. As you breathe naturally into the abdomen, just notice and watch. Be with the process of those arms swinging. You're noticing they're gradually getting a little smaller in their swings. Swinging very naturally, completely naturally subsides. Surrender to, let those arms surrender completely to gravity. Not in any hurry to bring those arms to stillness, completely letting gravity do that. So the arms come to hanging, resting stillness whenever that happens. You're just watching the process. Having sense that your fingers enter the ground, or the energy from your fingers enter the ground, or water drops falling from the fingertips enters the ground. Even as your feet enter the ground, the same with the hands. Body stays open and bright and empty. As the arms are pulled straight down the sides, getting longer, until your energy fingers are beneath the ground, or feel like your even physical fingers are touching the ground. Weight through the legs and feet, upper body open. Breath is free in the abdomen. Come back to the Dantian once more. Weight through the feet. Gently rock up. Good. Notice how you feel. Notice your breath. Notice your joints. Good. Thank you very much, everyone.